Okay, welcome everyone. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day, night, morning, evening, afternoon, whatever you are having. I hope you're having a fantastic one. Today we're on week 2 of the video game development. And after talking with Tristan a bit, I think that I agree with him. So I'm going to be showing the visual design. So coding, I'll probably show some coding snippets when that part starts. And here and there I'll show some of the game design itself, the actual document that is being built as we go along, just so that I, as the game designer and the developer, know what I'm doing. But today we're going to be looking at making, so let me pull up actually. Okay, so let's look at the actual timeline here, shall we? So last week, project officially started looking at ideas, concepts, what the game's going to be, what it's going to be like, things of that nature. Today, we're going to be talking about organic ships or life forms in space. Specifically, we're going to be making ships or life forms given rough sketches here. There's actually a little bit more to it than that, and you'll see as we go on. Next week, we will tackle artificial ships or life forms in space. These are not exhaustive, so the things that are made here on the stream are not the only ones that will be in the game. These are just things that you might enjoy watching as I create them, so you can see the process that I'm following and how I'm getting to there. As you can see, we've got every week except for May 5th and May 12th. We've got, so again, next week would be artificial ships, artificial life forms in space. Then we switch to planet side, so we'll handle organics on planet side, then we'll handle organic or artificials on planet side. Then we'll go to structures, organic, artificial, etc., and just go bing, 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 bing. I plan for actual code to start happening on May 19th. If we follow this timeline, now this is a proposed timeline. Life might get in the way, things might happen, but this is the timeline I would like to follow. This middle part is all of the graphical, things that you will see or can see as a player. Up here is the technical design. This is the document that I am writing so that I know what I'm doing. And then down here is the code where I start coding the game. I plan to have a actual gameplay or demos here on the stream on June 23rd. Oh, this is wrong. Right here, this date would be July 14th. So it would be June 23rd, July 14th. I'll fix that. August 18th, and then if everything goes as planned, the game should be released for free. Of course, this is a for free game on September 22nd on the Google Play Store. You'll notice that we have UI here, and then there's miscellaneous, and then these weeks don't have anything. So August is a bit of an exciting time in my life. There's going to be lots going on here. So I have left these weeks open to see what happens at that time. But I digress. Today we're talking about life forms and organic ships in space. So I wanted to show you, so last week, and I don't recall, last week, Tristan and I kind of discussed what would life forms, how would they move in space, right? They wouldn't have fins, they wouldn't have anything like that, because a fin or a tail implies that they are pushing in some kind of medium to propel themselves forward, which would not be suitable for space, clearly. But I started thinking about, okay, so what life in reality, it has a shape kind of like a kite. Because there is something in space. There's the what are called the solar winds, which is plasma being ejected from the sun. And in reality, there are these flagellates. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And these are microscopic life forms. So I kind of wanted to use these as a source of inspiration. And it actually worked out really, really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer. So these are going to be, so this will be our inspiration. And what we're going to do is, and so my plan, in fact, let me just make let me show you what my plan is. We'll just make a quick show and tell for you. So I'm going to sketch out, in this stream, I'll sketch out and provide some idea of what I'm doing. So we'll call this rough sketch. From the rough sketch, I'm going, and I'll do this next part off stream. So this next part is, I'm going to be feeding these rough sketches into Stable Diffusion. I have Stable Diffusion running locally here on my system. So feed sketch into Stable Diffusion. For those of you who don't know what Stable Diffusion is, it is a generative AI. So step 1, step 2. So let's actually, to be a little more clear, we will say so Stable Diffusion will be off camera because it's not that exciting. Next week I will show what Stable Diffusion and I came up with. So show and tell. So this is the proposed chain of events. So today we'll work on 3 sketches, but we'll talk about a 4th. Actually, we'll talk. We'll talk. So we're gonna start here. Oh, that's a terrible. Then here I will do this off camera, and then next week we will show and tell here. So let's get going with that. So as I had mentioned, these are fantastic. These what these do in reality is they actually flatten themselves here and let water move them around. And these are microscopic life forms, but they were perfect for my purpose. So what we're going to do is we are going to so these are going to be just general life forms, and they're going to look something like a kite. So it's going to look something like this. And actually, I've been thinking about how these would live, how these would move, the whole 9 yards. And I will give all that information to you. So just so that they're a little more symmetrical. Perfect. So this actually might look a little bit different than this. So I'll play with this, but let me explain what's going on here. So we discussed that life in space would need to have some means of getting around. And what the most viable way that I could think of would be sail, using the solar winds to move themselves around. So I was looking at these dino flagellates, and I was thinking, okay, well, this is great. It's kind of like a kite, but how would the creature turn? How would it know which way it's facing, where it wants to go, things of that nature? So that's where all of this comes in. So let's change this to blue. So these in this creature in my game, these are going to be sensory organs. Sensors. And they are going to sense gravity. So we will say these are gravity sensors. So they will know which direction the sun is, or suns, as the case may be. They will know where planets are. They will know so they don't see as in visible spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. They see, quotes, I'm using air quotes here, gravity. Down here, this would be the feeding appendage. So this would be how they get food, intake nutrients. One of two ways, and I'll explain in a moment. So this is the mouth. As such as it is. So this is what would be moved around. So a couple things that we know here. These float in space, propelled by solar winds. Boo, 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 boo. They consume energy from the sun and asteroids, we'll say material in space. Asterisk. Now, this is where it kind of gets a bit fun. So we'll put this down here, and we're actually going to change this to, so this is informational, so we're going to change this to orange. Nope, can't see orange well. Change it to red. Perfect. So this is, they float in space, they can turn their body kind of like a sail or a kite. So if they sense a source of gravity, a specific direction, then they can turn themselves to kind of float in that direction. So this part here is where they are able to absorb sunlight. So there are two methods of intake, food intake. One is this part here. This is just a big flat-ish area that absorbs, it's kind of like a leaf. Think of this part here as a leaf that absorbs sunlight. This part down here would be the mouth. It probably won't look like that, but they move it around or they drag it over something and they just gather nutrients that way. Now, an interesting part here is this part here. This is actually the brainstem area. Brain stem. Organs. Brainstem and organs. Yeah, this is looking quite nice. Now, a couple other fun things of note here. And I will put these. I will put some additional notes up here. No known age limit. No known size limit.
Hello.
Why, hello, Sean. How are you?
All right.
We're talking.
Guess we can start somewhere, huh?
We do. We always need to start somewhere. This is actually the second week for the game development series. Sure, I can do that. So this is the first design. So in the game, these can be anywhere from the size that eat just micrometeorites to the size that eats planets. It'll be fun to see what size you find. Now, let's talk about the next critter. So everybody knows cuttlefish. They're great. They're amazing. We all love cuttlefish. So I was thinking, what would be the next
Weird.
cuttlefish?
Woodworm.
They're great. We love cuttlefish. So cuttlefish, again, I was thinking, how would they propel themselves? How would they move their bodies, right? So this is where we're going to make our own version of cuttlefish. And there's actually going to be 3 versions of cuttlefish. So let's talk about that. They're not going to be cuttlefish, clearly, but they will look something like cuttlefish. So let's grab... So what we're going to be doing is let's do this and do this. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to do is, in space, they're not going to have eyes. That's not a thing in space. You wouldn't be able to see. So, no eyes. Sorry, buddy. The next part is these. So in reality, they use these fins for propulsion. But that's actually not going to work in space, again, for the reasons we've discussed. So, no fins in space, sorry. So what we are going to do is we're actually going to change this also. Going to be kind of awkward, but it's okay. You'll get over it. So these would also travel by solar wind. So what we would do, or what we are going to do, is we're going to do a couple things. So this creature would have an array of tentacle-like appendages here. So here would be a mouth. They would have an array of tentacle-like appendages, like so. And this would be kind of like a flower, almost. And I will show you what we're doing with that in one moment. So these would, in a similar fashion to the other critters that we just finished, these critters and we will say do and then we will fill this area with some other color. So they will have a variety of these tentacle-like appendages that would go vertical and kind of function as a sail or a kite. and there would be one, of course, one on the top, one on the bottom, one on each side. There could be a variety, kind of like flower petals. But the goal is, in their natural state, and I'll explain that in a second, they would be able to propel themselves in this manner by putting up different of these cells, quote cells, or turning them. And that's how they would get around, move from place to place. And we'll say this is the mouth, and we'll say sharp teeth. Yeah. In reality, they wouldn't actually have teeth like this. They would probably have a series of something in here that would destroy that whatever they're eating or break down what they're eating. Yeah, this is actually quite perfect. So this is what they would, and in fact, we should put more of these so that it is easier to see what we're talking about here. Also, how are you doing, Sean? How are things?
Doing all right.
Good, good, good. Well, about that.
Last week you said this is the second week. Last week did you actually do this? I thought you were gone last week. You're off last week.
No, we did this. Pretty sure it was last week.
Not off, but you gamed for a bit and then you split off. Is that what happened?
No, we just did this, and then wandered off, as I recall.
Oh.
But last week was not graphic like this. Last week was text. Ba, 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 ba. But Tristan pointed out that's not very fun to watch. So we're going to be doing the text off stream, and we'll be doing the visual design on stream. Yeah, so these creatures would have a variety of appendages, tentacle-like appendages that actually have a membrane here to act as a sail, or a kite to travel around. Now, I had mentioned that there's going to be actually a couple versions of this. Oh, here's the timeline shot, if you wanted to peruse that. But I digress. So there's actually 3 versions of this creature. So this is the natural state. The next one, also semi-natural state, but the mouth has been, so this one is semi-domesticated. So people in space have semi-domesticated them. And I actually have worked out how this happens and the process and everything. That's unfortunate for me. So what they do, and I'll just tell you in the stream here how this happens. So they will capture one. The brain on these things is right about here. Brain. So what they do to domesticate these is they stun them. They go in the mouth area. They clear all of this out that is not necessary. So they leave the parts and pieces that feed the creature, but they actually hollow this out, removing the mouth area and those unnecessary organs to put living space in.
That doesn't sound very nice.
Well, sometimes things aren't very nice. And they turn these into living quarters, and people live inside. So this would be the semi-domesticated. Semi-domesticated. I don't know if semi is the correct word. These are actually fully domesticated, but we'll say it this way because it's nice. And then there's a third version of this. And these ones are what I'll say are completely domesticated. These are not happy critters. So what happens here is these.
They'd probably call it like by its function. They'd probably call it domesticated, but like they'd have a certain name for it probably.
Right. So what happens here is these ones actually only have roughly half of the amount of membranes that they would normally have. And what the life form, the intelligent life form, so these are semi-intelligent. And what the life forms, what's happened here is people have bolted, so they will only typically have the top and the bottom membranes for movement, but people have actually come in and bolted engines onto the sides here. So there would be an engine here, and there would be one, of course, over here. So, yeah. So these ones they also are lived inside, but they're almost cyborgs. So maybe a better way to say this is cyborg.
So would they use them as transport, you said? Well, transport and living, but they use them like a ship.
Yes, correct. So these would be the three versions.
I wonder if they would call them by that. Maybe they'd have a different name for them. But anyway.
Oh yeah,
something I'm just thinking out.
No, you're good. So there would be the natural version, right? So these are what you would find in the wild. They're completely passive, completely harmless. They don't do anything. They just eat and breed and wander around. There would be these ones where people have taken out the unnecessary organs inside of them, such as the mouth area and such, and they've turned them into ships, but they are able to kind of encourage the creature which way to go and how to go, because they have a direct access to the brain here. So maybe they poke this part, prod that part, basically poke the brain bop, 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 to get it to go one direction or another. And then this one, the cyborg version,
we'll call it electrical stimulus. Let's call it that.
We can just call it stimuli. There you go.
There you go.
So, and then this one, of course, these folks, the cyborg version, they've got computers hooked right up to the brains. They've got engines on the side. They've removed some membranes so that the membranes don't get burned by the engines or otherwise interfere with their function. So, yeah. Now, there are actually going to be 4 factions of life form that are associated with these creatures. There's going to be 4? 3. There's going to be one faction of people that want them protected, preserved in their natural state, kind of like PETA. There's going to be basically
Right. So they
farmers.
don't like that they change them in this way. Yeah.
Right. Then there's going to be basically farmers or shepherds or something like that. They like to live in them. That is their culture, their way of life. They don't view this as harming them because the ones that they have will typically live much, much, much longer lives than natural. That is because they are always given food constantly. Whatever food they need, the creature doesn't have to stumble upon finding it in the wild. The life forms that live inside just feed them. So this would be, the farmers or shepherds would consider this a symbiotic relationship. That's how they would view it. And then of course there's the ones that want to exploit them. So this would be entities or people, however you want to phrase it, that they just view them as a means to an end. They might not be necessarily evil. Perhaps they view this as just a better solution for the creatures and them and everybody involved. So yeah, we can certainly see that playing out. So yeah, so this, oh, you might not have been here for the explanation, Sean. So,
I was not.
oh, then let me give you the explanation, shall we? So this is actually going to be a fairly, so I'm going to be just doing milestones when there's general milestones to show, and talking when there are things to talk about. But,
Gotcha.
and let me do this really quick. Yes, something like that. Anyway, I digress. So the plan is, so rough sketch it out, which has been accomplished. Talk about the critters, what they do, how they, what their place in the world is. Feed these sketches into Stable Diffusion, which I have here locally. And then next week we will do a show and tell about what the final iteration is for these creatures. And let me show you the timeline. So today, this was the goal. So these little streams are not going to be necessarily long. They might be longer. Some weeks will be longer than other weeks. But yeah, so actual coding is going to begin on May 19th. And as you can see, we're hammering on something every week here, except for May 5th and May 12th. There will be no stream on these days. The first demo I would like to give on June 23rd. Then on July 14th, this is a typo. On July 14th, there should be another demo. Another on August 18th, and this is tentative. And then ideally the game will be released around September 22nd. It will be released for free on Google Play. So yeah, so this is the timeline.
So is it going to be a phone one?
Yep, so it'll be a phone game. I am going to be making the assets large enough to port out to a computer game. So if it's not terribly difficult, I will also port it to a computer game and just throw it up on Steam. and it will be free there also. So there you go. So my goal in making this game is because I want to play this game. Oh, actually,
What's the game gonna be about?
you weren't here last week for all of that. So you are going to appreciate some of this. So the game is going to be a space-based game.
Sure.
It has my sources of inspiration are things like Star Control 2, otherwise known as Urquan Masters. It is an old bulletin board, an old BBS game called Trade Wars 2002. It's also pulling inspiration from a game called Mail Order Monster on the Commodore 64.
I heard of Trade Wars, but I never. Oh, I remember Mail Order Monster, of course.
Yes. So these are my sources of inspiration. The aesthetic that I would like to do, you can actually see. So there's a game called Shattered Pixel Dungeon. It's available for free on the phone and the Google Store. That is kind of what I'm going for. Is maybe not quite that pixelated, but I would like to go with maybe a 16-bit or 32-bit era look and feel. But yeah. So next week I'll show everyone on the stream what these three turned into, what these designs look like. And then I will also show you how I take those designs and how I turn them into whatever size image I need them to be. So the sprites for this game will probably be 64 by 64. They might be 32 by 32, or they might be 128 by 128, but I think 64 by 64 pixels feels right. We'll have to see. But yeah. So it is a space-based game. It is going to be a roguelike asterisk. So the goal here is when you start the game, it will generate the game. Oh, the beginning is going to kind of be like Ultima 4, Search of the Avatar. You may recall that or not. At the beginning of that game,
I do not recall this.
at the beginning of Ultima 4, you actually answer some questions. So you go to a gypsy camp, and a gypsy lady
Oh, I remember that.
asks some questions, and then based on the answers you give, that is the class you are in the game when you start. So there's going to be something of that, and the player is going to have a choice of new universe, middle universe, old universe, and that basically determines how much life exists in the maybe universe is the wrong word. It probably just going to be galaxy. But yeah, so I want some replayability here. I want to be able to play this game myself and not know exactly what's going to be happening. So I'm actually going to be doing quite a bit of work on the back end with generation of content. So I'll create creatures, but I'm also going to be creating creature parts so that they can be assembled in new and exciting ways, kind of like what No Man's Sky does a little bit. So in No Man's Sky, what they do is they will build parts of things, and then they have created an algorithm that will assemble those things into ships, creatures, plants, whatever. So we'll be doing...
Oh, like planets and stuff, yeah.
Right, so...
That makes sense, I understand.
So I'll be doing something of that nature, just because I don't want to always see like, so these creatures here that we've shown, they will definitely be in the game, but there's going to be many more creatures and creature types that are just assembled via the system, right? The system will say, you propulsion method, you get combined with this appendage and this appendage and this body structure, and ta-da, creature. Just to give it a little bit of replayability. Also, I'm going to try and put some... Do you remember AIML? AIML? Artificial Intelligence Markup Language? Do you remember that?
I don't.
So this is a method that was pioneered in the 70s with an artificial intelligence system called Alice. I used to teach people and children how to code chatbots using AIML. So I will be using some kind of like it won't be exactly that, but it will be similar to that, so that the AI reacts in better ways, or more realistic or more lifelike ways than what normal video games allow for. And I will also be trying to put in some behaviors, so you won't know exactly what they're going to do. They will have something like a personality. And yeah, so as far as on my side, there's going to be a lot of effort on the back end just to try and give the game a semblance of life. But none of that's fun to look at. That's mostly just math. Almost entirely just math. But yeah, so this is the timeline. This is the project. If all goes well, I will be making another one a few weeks after this one is released and everything's out and done. I will be doing it again and again and again until such time as I run out of ideas for games, which will be never.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. So with that, I think we are actually done for this stream. So, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the stream today. Let's see. We will see all of you next week where I show you the results of what has occurred. And we will go from there. So thanks everyone. I hope everyone has a fantastic day, night, morning, evening, afternoon. We will see you in 3 days. Bye-bye everyone. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. Boop, 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 boop.